Did you know that you can make your soil last longer and improve the health of your plants by reamending and reusing the soil after each run? It's a common misconception in the grow community that once soil's used, it's been depleted of its nutrients or deemed unusable. And there's a microscopic amount of truth to that, but the truth is, soil can actually be reused. And doing so is not only going to help your garden thrive, but also help the planet thrive, because organic matter like soil and landfills contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and the unnecessary depletion of our natural resources. So in this video, I'm going to show you organic ways to reamend your soil with all the right components to ensure optimal nutrient availability and uptake for your plants. You're going to learn what organic amendment products can be used and some home alternatives if you're looking to do this on a budget or DIY. So first, we're going to go over the materials that we're going to be using. The first thing you're going to need is a tarp, which you can already see set up there. Then you're going to need your soil. With your soil, you want to make sure that you keep track of how much soil you have and note the condition that your soil is in. If your soil is a little bit drier, you're going to know that that soil is going to need a lot more of your attention when it comes to humidity or moisture. So pay close attention to that. You also want to know how much soil you have so you can put the right amount of products in here or the right amount of amendments. The next thing you're going to need is your base fertilizer. For this process, I'm going to be using the Botanicare Organic Hair Grow. Then you're going to need some worm castings, some form of aeration. I'm going to be using organic rice hulls. And you're going to want some sort of mycorrhizal fungi inoculant. This is going to be great. I'm going to be using the Dynamicos for this process. The last thing is going to be optional. It's going to be hydrogen peroxide, but I will advise if you're reusing old soil, you don't really know what condition it's in, or you don't know if there was any exposure to any pathogens, bacteria, or anything that you don't really want to have, it's a good idea to sterilize your soil. And there's two ways that you can do this. You can do it with hydrogen peroxide, or you can do it in the sun. Leave your soil out in the sun for 2 weeks. That's going to sterilize it as well. I'm going to be using the hydrogen peroxide method just because it's going to be a little bit quicker on that turnover time. So it's going to save me a lot of time. Some extra tools I'm going to be using is going to be an electronic sprayer wand. This is not an absolute necessity. I just like to use it so I can make sure that I get even water distribution. And the other thing that I'm going to be using is going to be a digital soil meter. Also not 100% necessary, but it's going to help me get as accurate as I can. So the first thing that you want to do is identify a good spot that's going to work for you. You got to keep in mind your soil is going to be sitting here for 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how long you want to cook it for. After you identify your area, lay out your tarp, which I've already done here, and dump out all your soil. When you dump out your soil, you want to keep track of how much you have and the condition that it's in. Like I said, this is going to help you determine your amendments and how much water you actually need. So if we look at my soil here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 3-gallon pots. So that means I got a total of 27 gallons of soil, just about. Just want to note the condition that the soil is in. You can see the soil is really, really dry. It's gone hydrophobic. So it's going to need a lot of love when it comes to moisture. So once you already know what condition your soil is in, you want to go ahead and dump it all out. The next step is going to be to break down your soil. You want to go ahead and take all these large blocks. You want to break them to little pieces. You want to remove any big root balls from here. Anything smaller can stay. Anything bigger, you want it to go. If you had some sort of cover crops or something in there, it's going to be a light little bit of roots or anything like that. It's going to be all right. This stuff will break down over time. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of fresh soil to this. This looks really, really dry. You want to note my soil looks like this because I had cover crops. So cover crops will give you a lot of roots in your soil. Also, I used the last soil that I used was the Build-A-Soil organic soil mix. So I'm literally just going to be reamending that soil that was already really good. I'll break down all the large clumps of soil. If you have any small leaf material in here or any little bit of like small roots, you can really leave that. It's going to break down over time. We're going to be adding some other stuff to here too. So it's not really going to have a huge effect on your final product, especially these smaller ones that break down so easily by hand like that. But as you can see, the soil's really, really, really dry. It's like even dusty. They need a lot of water, a lot of reamending. Now, after doing all this and seeing how much dust this really kicked up, I just want to just make a regular announcement that be mindful of where you do this. I'm doing this inside my house. The dust in here is going to be ridiculous, and I kind of regret doing it inside, but it's the middle of the winter and I don't want to be outside freezing. I don't want my soil to freeze while it's cooking. There's kind of reasons why I'm inside, but keep in mind, if you do this inside, it's going to kick up a lot of dust. If you got a garage, that would be the best place to do it more than likely. All right, once we've broken down all the major clumps and taken out any large debris, we're gonna want to move into the hydration phase. Now, if you're gonna do the soil sterilization with the hydrogen peroxide, that's gonna be this step. So for me, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put 16 ounces of hydrogen peroxide into 5 gallons of water. I'm gonna mix it thoroughly, and I'm gonna make sure that that pH is at optimal level, right? So we wanna make sure our pH is still in the 6 to 7 range. So all of our amendments and everything will go in fine. It's going to be bioavailable to the plants. All right, so when you're ready to start watering, make sure 1, your water is at the appropriate pH, and 2, that you're evenly watering through. So this is my hydrogen peroxide and water solution to sterilize. Now the soil's starting to get a little bit more moist, starting to stick together a little bit better. It's still not moist enough, but it's starting to get there. You can see it start to clump up. You want it to be able to do that, but you don't want it to soak. You don't want it to be juicing when you do that, because then that would mean that you overwatered it. Probably after this next little bit of watering, I'm gonna go through with the digital soil meter, and we're gonna see what the actual moisture content of the soil actually is. Starting to even out. Still feels super dry on this side though. So during this process, I'm pretty much bringing it up back to the proper moisture level. Feels really dry. Let's do one more. If you use the hydrogen peroxide sterilization method, you're going to want to let your soil sit for a minimum of 24 hours before you start putting your amendments in it. So my soil's already been sitting for a while. If you didn't do this and your soil is now moist and ready to go, you want to make sure that it's not too moist. So I'm going to be using a digital meter here. I'm going to poke this in here, and you don't want your soil moisture to be anything above 45%. Mine is ideal at about 40. If you push it deeper or bring it up a little bit more, you'll see that it'll vary. The bottom layers are likely to be a little bit more moist than the top layers because of it sitting. And you can just go ahead and give it a mix, and that's going to even out. Once your soil's well hydrated, we're ready to go in with our base fertilizer. Like I said, I'm going to be using Organic Hair Grow, and this requires for me to use 28 grams for every 3-gallon pot. I'm going to go ahead and add that in there. Doesn't really matter how even it is right now. The soil has to be really, really well mixed. Now this mixture is really balanced in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So if you want to go for a home alternative for this, you're looking to make some compost that has some good greens like grass clippings, bone meal for a good phosphorus, and potassium like banana peels or wood ash. And you want to use about 10 to 20% compost volume for what you're using in soil. Next, we're going to go in with our worm castings. Our worm castings are going to improve our soil structure and water retention, as well as increase that microbial activity. And you want to put about 10 to 15% of your total soil volume. If you're looking for a home alternative for this, I would say that your best bet is actually getting earthworms and putting those in your soil, letting them do the actual work. All right, after our worm castings, we want to go ahead and get into our aeration. For aeration, I'm going to be using rice holes. As you can see in this soil, there is already rice holes that are visible in here. There's also some pumice. This is actually Build a Soil 3.0 living soil. I just had it sitting for a really long time. That's why I'm reamending. So I'm going to go really light on the rice holes. I would say rather than the 10 to 20% that you want to go normally, I'm going to go a little bit on the lighter side with a 5 to 10%. So even though I am using rice hulls, there's some other home alternatives that you can use. You can opt into like cardboard paper, works for aeration. I know some people use cocoa coir for aeration, chopped up leaves, eggshells, sand. And our last thing is going to be our microbial inoculant. I'm going to be using Dynamicals for the first time ever. This calls for 1 teaspoon per gallon of soil. I'll be adding that in. This is going to help enhance our nutrient uptake and build good, strong roots. All right, once we've thoroughly mixed everything in, we're going to do one last pH check. We're going to make sure that our moisture is not too high. Our pH is just right. We want to stay within 6.0 and 7. Right now, it looks like we're right on that line, about 6.6. All right, and the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to cover everything up, and we're going to let the soil cook. We'll mix it in thoroughly. So at this point, you just want to let the soil cook for about 2 weeks. This is debated a lot among growers, among cultivators, how long soil should actually cook for. I let mine go for 2 weeks. This is going to allow for these beneficial microbes to actually establish and for the ecosystem to actually start thriving in the soil. So if throwing out soil isn't really your thing and sustainable agriculture sounds more like you, now you got a couple easy and cost-effective ways that you can improve, reuse, and recycle your soil after every grow. And the best part about this is that once your living soil is in a good microbial environment, the benefits are only going to increase with each cycle. Always remember, there's 1,000 ways to grow, and I'm just going to show you mine. If you do it differently, that's perfectly fine. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Join us next week. We're going to be going over our new system, the strains we're going to be growing, and the easiest way to germinate your seeds.